Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Happy Hour podcast. Of course, I'm Ray. I'm sitting here with Matt. Matt's back. Unfortunately, Matt's been gone for a few weeks because he had COVID. And we're being joined by our special guest, Devin DeVasquez. Devin, how you doing?
I'm good, guys. How are you guys doing?
Not too bad. As we know, we did our Patreon exclusive a little bit before this. And we were talking a little bit beforehand, and you said that you felt that it's kind of crazy that you're old enough to be our moms. And also,
yeah, finding out that you're 35, you're 30. What I did Can't Buy Me Love 35 years ago. So you're old, and I'm old enough to be your mom. Yeah.
And I told Matt it's crazy because when you did the one Playboy pictorial, it was June 1985. I was born April 1985, so I was just 2 months old when that happened. And speaking of that, how I saw online that Playboy pretty much discovered you. How did all that come to be with all the Playboy stuff? Because Playboy over the years, like way back I feel like that over time, like Playboy was something that you were like, oh man, that person's doing Playboy. And over the years, I feel like it kind of lost that specialness. Like, you sit there and it's like, oh man, Pamela Anderson's doing Playboy, or us, I'm a wrestler, oh man, Sable or Tori Wilson or whoever's doing Playboy, man, that's huge. And
things change because of the internet. The internet, it's really pushed that envelope to the nth degree now. Nothing is not online that you can, get for free, pretty much. You see everything and anything. So, it was a different world 35 years ago. And it's interesting because Playboy, I know that world so well because it was such a big part of my life. And I interviewed people, playmates, icons like Betty Page. That was a big coup for my pinup career, interviewing her when she was 78 years old and hearing about what it was like for her to pose nude in the 50s. It was a very different world back in the day. So now, looking forward, I'm now in that vintage category because it's been so long and Playboy doesn't exist anymore in the same way. The brand is still there, but the magazine, the physical magazine, is no longer. So there's only that history and what it meant to you and what it meant to guys before you. So each decade was a little bit different, right?
Well, I remember, and it's funny because my dad used to have a gigantic stack of Playboys that big, and I knew exactly where they were in the basement. Like he thought he was clever where he was hiding them, but I knew exactly where they were, and I would always go down. And it's funny because Playboy, there for a while they went to non-nude, and then the magazine stopped completely. And it's crazy because when they went to non-nude, I'm like, this is pretty much Maxim. Like it was pretty much a Maxim magazine at that point. And I was like, if I wanted a Maxim magazine, I'd buy a Maxim magazine. But yeah, Playboy, you name it. And do they still have the Playboy network?
I don't think so. I think it's just the brand, that you see on Instagram. But to answer your question, Playboy discovered me in college at LSU, and I graduated a year early from high school. So I was 17 when they discovered me, but I turned 18 after they shot pictures of me. And so it took me 2 years to work up the nerve to pose fully nude, because I was very shy and I'd never seen a Playboy, and it was just a means to pay for school at the time. It changed my life, that decision. So like any decision in life, what you choose to do at that time can take you on a different path. And it definitely took me out of Louisiana and brought me to Chicago. And then from there, my modeling career took off with Star Search and winning Star Search and acting. And it just kind of, I went on a path I didn't expect just by making that decision to to pose nude back in 1981, before you were born.
Oh, wow.
Well, it's
Oh,
funny.
man.
I had someone, I think it was the day before yesterday. They were like, well, what's Star Search? And I was just kind of like, wait, what do you mean? Star Search? And I was just kind of like, I'm like, well, have you ever seen like, American Idol or The Voice or say, any America's Got Talent? I was like, it's pretty much, it was a show like that. And
Well, it was the grandfather of all of those shows, because Star Search had every category. It had acting, dancing. It was the first time you saw models walk and talk at the same time on television. You'd never seen that before. You only saw them in magazines, So that was the big deal about Star Search. But all of those shows, The Voice, American Idol, Dancing with the Stars, they're all derivatives of Star Search. Just like all of the magazines, the ones that pushed the envelope, like Penthouse or Hustler, and now the World Wide Web pushed Playboy, being the grandfather of what we like to call pinup photography, because pinup is very fine line. Pinup is nudity that's very tasteful. Like Hef would always say, we were the girl next door, but we like sex too. The girl next door lives, I'm sure the girl next door that happens to be hot and sexy, she could be your next door neighbor. That's the concept of Playboy. Whereas a lot of people back in the day would like to lump it in with pornography. It was considered pornography if you were naked. But how do you define pornography today? Anything goes today. I mean, and you see it all over the place. I mean, I took my bra off on primetime television for the first time in 1989 for the TV show Married with Children.
Yes.
That was so controversial.
Yeah.
And then you see a show like Game of Thrones that was so popular, and my God, they had everything going on in there. So it's like no big deal to your generation to see nudity.
Nope.
And we've said before, because we've had adult film stars on the show before, that we've been in the deepest, darkest parts of the dark web for porn as it's been anyway. So like, if it's available, you can find it. It's crazy. And I was listening on the radio the other day, they were having people call in on, stuff with their teacher. And they were like, we had a teacher who had done Playboy. Oh. And I sat there and I thought, I'm like, well, that's crazy. Cause when Playboy was around, it was in its, it was a mainstay in its heyday, you didn't have the internet. So you wouldn't know that someone was in that magazine unless you got the magazine. It's not like it's the internet where someone can go on Facebook and be like, oh my God, our teacher is in Playboy. It would never, ever fly today. So it's crazy. There's teachers who lost their jobs, trying to make ends meet during COVID for having an OnlyFans. So,
I thought you were going to say having sex with students.
No.
Yeah, they
You know what? One of the highlights for me with my Playboy days too was the Playmate of the Year luncheon. Around this time every year in May, they would have a luncheon with all the press, and just Playmates would be there, and the press, to reveal who the Playmate of the Year would be. And I always enjoyed those luncheons, because you would have Playmates from all the different decades. And I remember meeting Connie Caston, who was the Playmate the month and year I was born. So I was June 1963 was when I was born, and she was Miss June 1963. So I remember being very excited to meet her. And then we would all take a photo, it was always like a high school reunion or something. We would see each other and take pictures, and the press would take a big group picture with the Playmate of the Year in the center. So those were really beautiful memories for me. And I can understand how you feel about going, oh, some of the students going, oh, that teacher was in Playboy.
Yeah.
And then as you go on, it'd be like, that old lady over there was in Playboy years ago.
Damn.
And shout out to our buddy Tom Nutty. He's joining us on Facebook Live. Of course, we are on Facebook Live, so make sure you interact with ourselves and Devin. And for those of you listening at home, we're always live a week early with our guests on Facebook. Make sure you check out the hhpod.com for information on when to see our live feed and see the episode a week early and interact with us and our guests. And speaking of Betty Page, you authored a few books, one of which was The Naked Truth About a Pinup Model, which includes an interview with Betty Page. And myself, when I saw the name Betty Page, I was like, oh, if anybody knows pinups, they know Betty Page. She's on any kind of, even if it's like a classic cartoon-like pinup girl, I mean, that's Betty Page, with the long black hair. That's
well, she was famous for her bangs, and she was the brunette in the 50s, equivalent to Marilyn Monroe being the blonde. She was the brunette that was in Playboy, but she was a playmate in the 50s. She had that famous centerfold with her putting the bulb on the Christmas tree, so that was Betty Page. And she did revolutionize the pinup because she was very mysterious. She disappeared for a couple of decades. People didn't know what happened to her. There were all these stories as to what happened to her. And so it just made her mystique and who she was grow. And a lot of artists have painted her. I have been painted by a lot of artists. And so as a result, it sort of immortalized what people thought of her. And I think the movie Rocketeer had a big reference to her coming back, and there were documentaries done on her. But in my case, I was the only pinup, the only one, she said, that did what she did that ever interviewed her, because most of the documentaries and the people that interviewed her, there were men. So it was coming from a male point of view. I have been working on a documentary actually about the pinup from the pinup's point of view for about 20 years now. Okay. It's called Beyond the Centerfold. Or beyond the centerfold. And I put it on hold when I got married to raise or help raise my two stepdaughters. And so I'm going back to that, and I'm going to finish it because I do have the audio recording. Betty Page didn't want to be on camera at 78, even though she looked fantastic at 78. She still had those eyes and the bangs, but she was gray, and she wanted people to remember her the way she was. But she gave me an amazing interview that I will be sharing down the road when I finish this documentary, because you guys know that I'm a producer now. I'm an actress, so I'm going back to acting in this Western that I'm doing with my husband this summer. But I've been producing and writing the past decade, not acting. And I know you guys wanted to talk about your favorite movie, Can't Buy Me Love.
Yeah.
Well,
it was a classic.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring up. Of course, you're married to Ron Moss, and when I saw his name, I was like, his name looks familiar. And I saw a picture of him. I was like, where have I seen him before? And my grandmother was probably rolling over in her grave, because when I was a kid, every time I would go over to their house, it was always the soap operas that were on. Yeah. I saw The Bold and the Beautiful, and I was like, that's fucking it. That's where I saw when I was a kid. I clear as day, and I'm like, my aunts will literally slit my throat if and that's the whole thing. I looked at, I'm like, oh man, that's awesome. And
you know how many times I've heard this from kids your age?
Yeah,
they would say, oh, my grandmother's said basta. In Italy, they say basta. Stop, shut up, don't even speak. I'm watching The Bold and the Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. At my grandmother's house, it was her, my couple of aunts that lived there, and sometimes my mom would come over and they would watch The Bold and the Beautiful, All My Children. What was it? The Young and the Restless, all that. So me as a kid, if I wasn't at school, if it was during the summer, it's like I had to find something to keep me occupied, or else I was watching those soap operas. And it's kind of because I grew up to be a pro wrestler, which is kind of like an adult male version of a soap opera. So, that kind of,
Is it really? I don't know anything about wrestling.
It's all predetermined storylines, all that crazy.
You mean you're really not wrestling?
I mean, well, you are. All the injuries I have are.
Yeah, they're really beating the shit out of each other, but it's all kind of, well, that's the secret, I guess. It's all kind of really predetermined, like who's going to win the match.
Yeah, it's out that it's predetermined,
So you mean to tell me it's kind of fake?
Oh, yeah. But
How dare you?
I always considered it the most realist fake sport in the world because I have bad knees, I have a bad back, I've had 12 staples in my head, I've had stitches above my eye, and
God,
you do that fake thing, right? I'm like, oh yeah, well I have this scar here. It's fake. Yeah, okay, let's go with that. But no, I mean, and it's crazy that now that I think about it, I'm like, man, I as a kid I watched some of those soap operas, and then I grew up to be a part of a sports entertainment type soap opera, when I was a little bit younger. Of course, I'm retired now. I retired from wrestling, 5 years ago. I did a show about a year and a half ago, but it's insane. And going back to the Playboy stuff, how was it? Hef always had the mansion, correct? Was he always at the main mansion that he was at, or was that later on in time when he got the actual big Playboy mansion with the grotto and all that?
He had the Playboy mansion in Chicago up until the early 70s. I think he acquired the Playboy mansion in LA in 1971, or 72, early 70s. And it was Barbie Benton that found that property and moved to that mansion. And apparently he didn't really leave the mansion because back then all the celebrities and everybody went to him because he threw the best party in town. He didn't start venturing out to nightclubs until he was like 75 years old. I think everybody was surprised to see him even venture out of the mansion. And that was part of the reason why he had all the girls around him, is because he always felt comfortable at home. I kind of feel the same way. I love being home. And who doesn't like being in their PJs or their robe and being comfortable?
Beautiful women.
And he worked from the bedroom. He had a round bed, that's famous round bed in the 60s. And he, in his 20s, when he was really building the magazine, he would be up till wee hours of the morning looking at photos and mapping out the magazine. So
he worked his ass off. So he was always working that.
So you know him like on a personal level, like you really.
Well, I know him. I wouldn't say I know him super well. I know him because I was a Playmate 35 years ago, and I had 35 years of, well, not 35 years, maybe 30 years now, because the mansion's no longer, of going up to the parties. And when I asked him for the quote for my book, that was a big highlight for me, that he gave me a quote for my book, and The Naked Truth About a Pinup Model. And it was a big highlight for me when I won Star Search, and he actually said, we're all very proud of you here at Playboy for your win on Star Search, Devin. And I said, oh, thank you, Mr. Hefner. And he said, you can call me Hef. so that's that's pretty much the extent.
I'll have to say Mr. Hefner.
And I did live around the corner from the mansion back in the mid 90s. And I did invite him to a few parties that I threw, and that was when the mansion was dead, right before it came back to life, after he was married and had Marston and Cooper, and he and his wife split up, and that's right before he started going out to the clubs and stuff. And I think that was a big turning point for Playboy, and it was a big turning point for Hef. And he was also 75 years old at the time. But I got to throw a few parties that he attended of mine. So I can't say I ever had an in-depth conversation with Hef, but he was always very, very sweet to me. And I got to thank him for choosing me as Miss June 1985. So that was a big highlight in my life.
With the parties. Now, of course, Hef's always known for the parties. And,
yes.
Without, outing anybody or saying names, what do you think are probably some of the most insane things or memorable things you've seen coming out of one of those parties?
Well, what I thought was very interesting was the girls walking around in the most elaborate body paint. You couldn't really tell if it was body paint or if they had an actual lingerie outfit on, because it was that good. It was that good. In fact, when I took my husband, he wasn't my husband at the time, but when I took him up there for the first time, they had girls that were body painted, and they would walk around with the Jell-O shots. So when you walked in, they would come up and offer you a Jell-O shot. And so this girl came up and offered us a Jell-O shot. And my husband was looking at her, and he took a Jell-O shot, and she walked away. And I said, she's completely naked. That's a body painted lady. And he looked, and he was like, and we had to kind of look really, really close up because you couldn't tell. Yeah. And he goes, damn, I was looking right into her eyes. I didn't notice, And so one time this girl had, she looked like a cat, a leopard, because she had the eyes and she had the body paint and the tail and everything. And it was a Halloween party. And it was really hard to tell if she had an outfit on or if she was body painted. And my husband goes, she's body painted. And I went, no, that's an outfit. And we were arguing over it. So I went up to her and I went, are you body painted or is that an outfit? And then you had to look really close. And she was like, yeah, I'm body painted. So so my husband, he's very respectful, and he didn't want to stare at girls to try to figure out if they were body painted or if they really had an outfit on. But that was kind of funny. I can't, honestly, you guys, I can't say that I have seen anything inappropriate or crazy, because I was a playmate in 1985, and that was when AIDS was becoming very prevalent, and Hef had just had a stroke, and the mansion was not the party place that it was, say, in the 70s. Every decade had a different feeling. So if you were expecting to walk in and see naked people having orgies and stuff, that didn't exist. In fact, I walked in and thought, wow, this is the Playboy Mansion, because it seemed kind of changed.
What is this?
There were girls sunbathing naked in the backyard. Playmates were back then welcome to come and have. You could have, that was the cool thing. It was like being in a sorority. You could meet your other playmate sisters up there and have lunch anytime you wanted, or hang out and ask for whatever you wanted to eat at any time, day or night. So 24/7 butler service.
That is insane. I actually saw a special where they went over to butler service at the Playboy Mansion and how many chefs they had and all that. And of course, Hef was known for that robe that he wore. And with Hef, was
he naked under that robe?
he had his pajamas and a matching robe, and he had every color under the sun, every color.
Was he legit always in his robe and his pajamas, or was that more of kind of like a TV gimmick type? Like if he knew
No, he was always in his robe or pajamas. And only time I ever saw him in a suit was New Year's Eve.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, on New Year's Eve, he was dressed. And when I was a playmate, the camera would walk around and follow him, and he would go to every table and say hello to his guests and take pictures. And then as he got older, we would go to him where he was sitting and say hello. And, he didn't walk around as much.
And, even when he was older, Hef looked great for his age when he was older.
He did.
I wish I could look that good, at his age, when he was in his 70s, all the way up to when he passed. I was just kind of like, man, like
when he was in his 70s, my then boyfriend was in his 40s, and he invested in Pfizer because F was supposedly doing Viagra, and he was like, I want to be like him when I'm 70. So anyway, no, he looked great, and he took care of himself. It was really sad to see him decline in the latter years, because when you get older, especially when you're in your mid to late 80s, you become shorter. So he, kind of shrunk. And
what am I gonna do?
You're gonna be a little person by the time.
Yeah, you're gonna be really little, I can tell.
I'm like 5'6".
My only hope is that your arms short. Yeah. One day you're Matt, the next day you're Mini-Me.
Speaking of Mini-Me, I saw him up at the mansion one time for a party dancing. He was dancing right next to me. I guess he was probably maybe about 3 feet tall.
I was kind of were the girls holding him like were they holding him up like this while they were dancing? Because that's the thing. It's like, he can't dance with somebody, like, how you dance and like you'll put your arms around somebody when you
yeah. No, he was on the dance floor cutting a rug, He was, that was cute.
Yeah,
that was very cute.
I heard that.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, but that image is locked in my head. Like, you just walk out of the dance floor and she's just holding him, and he's just swaying back and forth.
I think if I recall, he was dancing with 2 or 3 beautiful blondes.
Oh man, that's boss.
He's probably young.
He lived it up. What was his name? Vern
Troyer.
Yeah, right. He lived it up. I saw him a few times up there.
And what we're going to do real quick is, for everybody listening at home, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead, we're going to take a break, we're going to get a word from our sponsors, play a song or two, and we will be back live with Devin DeVasquez. For those of you listening live, you know how this works. Normally we get right back into things. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Happy Hour podcast. We're here live with Devin DeVasquez. We're just talking to her about her Playboy stuff. And real quick, what we're going to do is we're going to get into our beer of the week, which I went out to Total Wine. It was my first venture to Total Wine. If you haven't seen it, it's like the Walmart of liquors, if there's anything near you. Mm-hmm. And since it just recently passed, I picked up Sweetwater Brewing Company Extra Pale 420 Ale. So for those of you who just celebrated 420 a couple of days ago, picked up Sweetwater 420 Extra Pale Ale. Pretty decent. Like it. Make sure you go out, find some. Shout out to Sweetwater Pale Ale. And of course, this is the last episode, because our next episode will be in May.
How dare you?
For our shot of the month, which I have no idea where I put the shot glasses. They're probably upstairs. So Matt, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and do this, because there's no shot glasses down here. And so, of course, our shot of the month this month is Hartley Visop. It's pretty heavy brandy from Italy. And I'm going to go ahead and do this, because we legit drink on Happy Hour podcast, and we'll get right into our games. I'll be glad that you missed out on this week. God damn. You missed out on it almost every week because you had COVID. And of course, what we do now is, from this point, we get into our games, which our first game is 5-second rule. So Devin, have you ever played 5-second rule?
Nope.
All right. So pretty much what I'm going to do is I'm going to name off a category and say, name 3 of this thing. And we have this little timer right here that I flip, and you have 5 seconds to name off 3 of those things. If not, it goes to Matt and then it goes to me. So
Okay.
what I want you to do is I want you to name 3 carbohydrates starting now.
Pasta, rice, potatoes.
There you go. Easy enough. So they vary up and down.
Why did it go to me? Because I don't fucking know.
I was sitting there trying to put it together. I'm like, chicken. I'm just kind of like, please don't get to me. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to play incoherent. So pretty much incoherent, it's pronounced incoherent. So I'm going to hold up a card, and it's going to pretty much be in drunken lingo. And you need to try to figure out what the term or the phrase pretty much is, but sound it out and listen to yourself as you say it. And, it'll help you figure out what it is. You also get 2 hints. So let me know if you need a hint. Can you see that okay?
Yes.
Okay. And what do you think that card says?
Dare Team Artini. Dara Team Artini. Dara Team Artini. Dara Team. I don't know. Dara Team.
Now say it like you're drunk.
Okay, I'm not drunk. I should have a drink in my hands here. Okay, let me see. Say it like I'm drunk. Dara Team Martini.
And also, one of the hints is not clean.
Dare Team Martini. Dare Team Martini.
Oh, you're so close. And the second
you
hint,
got the last word.
The second hint is a drink for when you're feeling equal parts fancy and naughty.
What? Darty. I have no idea. This is like, okay, what do I win?
It is Dirty Martini.
This is not Dirty Martini.
Yeah, it is Dirty Martini.
You had the last word. I was surprised you didn't
when
get
you said it in the drunk version, you thought you had it because you're like,
she had Martini.
I was like, she has it.
I should have gotten a hint. I didn't get a hint. If you had said something dirty,
the hint was not clean, and then a drink when you're feeling equal parts fancy and naughty.
And I like martinis. Now you're making me want one.
And then, of course,
I like dirty ones too.
We all like dirty ones.
And of course, we can't do our Ode to Humanity segment without doing Cards Against Humanity. Devin, are you familiar with Cards Against Humanity at all?
No.
Okay.
I don't know any of these games.
It's a really raunchy, messed up game. So pretty much what it is we're going to read off a blackface card. We're going to, read it off, and then you get 4 options of which one you think best answers that card. So the blackface card is, you have to see this new documentary on Netflix. I don't want to give anything away. Let's just say it will change the way you look at blank. And your options are violating the Geneva Convention, owing a lot of money to some very bad people, an 800-foot-long pool noodle, and a vagina that beatboxes when it's horny.
Oh my God. I'm going to say owing a lot of money to a lot of people.
All right. So Devin picks that, you have to see this new documentary on Netflix. I don't want to give anything away. Let's just say it'll change the way you look at owing a lot of money to some very bad people. If I had to choose, for some reason, I like the 800-foot-long pool noodle. Because if you watch a special that changes the way you look at an 800-foot-long pool noodle, then
I don't even know what that is.
I mean, I might be a perv. I'm going to pick the vagina one. I mean,
I was not going to pick that one.
You ever see those
a beatboxing vagina? Come on.
Come on, you guys. I'm a little bit older than you are. I was just not going to touch that one.
I understand. But I'm actually going to probably Google that now. So
a pool noodle, pretty much a lot of kids use them. They're just basically like these little foam, like cylindrical, noodles that are in the pool that
That would be
kids can.
pretty cool.
Oh yeah, I like those things. I like to float around in those.
Yeah, an 800-foot. Imagine one of those, but 800-foot long, like an anaconda.
You could fit everybody at the Playboy Mansion in there.
And so, pretty much, it's a combination of things. You created your own Cajun seasoning, but you also did a cookbook as well. How did that?
I did that because I'm from Louisiana, and when Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans, I wanted to do something to give back to victims of natural disasters. And I love to cook, and a lot of celebrity friends have had the gumbo, my Cajun gumbo, and I used to make it twice a year because it's pretty involved cooking gumbo or cooking Cajun food in general.
Yeah.
So I would cook my gumbo for my birthday in June or for Christmas, and I would invite friends over. And it got to the point where I would have celebrities and friends like Ray Parker Jr., for example. He had my gumbo, and he would say, anytime I would see these people, especially if it was at a party or a Playboy Mansion or wherever, they would say, "Oh, hi, Devin. When are you going to make gumbo again?" And I would just like look at them like, my God, And it was just like, it became this running joke because I do love to cook, but it kind of became synonymous with me after a period of time. And so when I would cook gumbo, I was always not happy with the Cajun spice that was in the markets. They were too salty. I didn't think they were flavorful enough. And I wanted to create my own because I wanted to give a portion of the proceeds to victims of natural disasters. And I wanted it to be authentic. So it was my recipe. I'm from Louisiana. It came from a small company, family-run company in Louisiana. That's where it's manufactured. And so it was inspired from my love of cooking from Louisiana and my desire to give back. So that's kind of where that came from. And it's been around for the last 10 years. And it seems like everybody loves my Devin's Kick-Ass Cajun Seasoning. So.
And is there any place in specific where you can get the seasoning? Like, is it any?
You can only order it online, devron.com. That's DEVRONN, 2 N's. My husband has 2 N's at the end of Ron. And it's a pet peeve of his. He hates it when they leave off an N. And their journalists are always doing that. And he's Ron with 2 N's. So devron.com. It's the only place you can get it.
Well, it's funny because I mentioned this before to people. He has a big pet peeve with that. My last name, it's Chase. So, a lot of people do CHASE, and everything I get CHASE. And I'm just kind of like, well, my name is actually how it actually sounds. Chase. And, and my wife married into that too. But of course, her last name was
You'd be surprised at how many people mess up my name. Devin, Devon, Devine, Divine. I'm like, it's the same as Kevin. Do they mess up Kevin? It's just with a D, You
gotta give them the D, girl.
And a lot of girls were named after me because of Playboy and Star Search too, because
that's really
Devin wasn't a common name back then, I guess.
Yeah,
that's cool.
It is now.
Of course, with your with the books that you've authored, also you've authored a book called "My Husband's a Dog, My Wife's a Bitch." And I read that and I visualized. I was like when I heard the title, I visualized a cartoon kids book. Like, my husband's a dog and he's a dog, and then it's like, my wife's a bitch, and I was just kind of like, this could totally be a cartoon novel. Like, this would be great.
No, this came about because I had an idea of writing a relationship book on men and women and how they view relationships, because we are opposite creatures in so many ways, in the way we think and our emotions and stuff. And so I had written my point of view because I trained my husband. I like to say I trained him, but he says he let me believe this I trained him to make me a cappuccino every morning and bring it to me in bed, because I am not a breakfast person. So he basically, for the last 17 years now, has made me breakfast, makes me a cappuccino, and brings it to me every day in bed, still to this day. And so because of that, he wrote his point of view. And so we wrote it his point of view, and we made it a very funny relationship book. And so it's kind of like men are from Mars, women are from Venus.
Yeah, that's what I thought of when I read the title.
And so he came up with the title because he knew that I'm an animal lover. I love dogs. I love and I like to compare men to dogs, because that in a lot of ways you guys are a little bit like dogs. You know, you like to run off and go pee in the other yard, but then you'll come back home, you know. And so he came up with the my husband's a dog, my wife's a bitch, because a bitch is a female dog. Yeah. So it's in the dog reference. Yeah. So that's where that came
Our
from.
dogs, right? Yeah. Every time we have a pretty female on here that's either a porn star or a pinup, we're here like, you know.
And I mean, think about it. If we really were like dogs, we would, like, when we meet each other, we would be sniffing each other.
Yeah. Hey, you know,
hi, how you doing?
If it wasn't for COVID, I'd be sniffing everyone right now anyway.
So, brought up the cappuccino thing with, you know, you having him trained. My wife, every time when we go to bed, we have a ceiling fan in our bedroom. And it's my job to turn that ceiling fan on, because if not, I'll be downstairs. Like if she goes to bed before I do, she'll be like, hey, I need you up here real quick or whatever. Or she'll make it out to be that there's like a bug or something upstairs. I'll walk in the room. I'll be like, what's up? She'll be like, can you turn the fan on? And I'll just kind of be like, are you really right now? Like,
you turn that fucking fan on.
I turn the fan.
You know what it is, Ray? I can tell you, because I have more experience and I'm older than you. I can tell you that the secret to a happy relationship, especially if you were locked down with each other during COVID and you survived, because we know a lot of couples that did not, right? Is doing little things that you know makes her happy, and you do get used to that after a while. You know, in his case, I didn't drink coffee before I met him. He introduced me to cappuccinos, and he liked making them, and he puts honey in them, and we make it with coconut milk or almond milk or oat milk. And he does, it's a whole process that he enjoys doing, and he knows it makes me happy. So that's why he continues to do it. And, you know, happy wife, happy life.
Exactly.
That's
100%.
They say.
And of course, we know we're
my wife hates my guts, but
yeah, our wives mutually they love to hate us. That's just what it is. And of course, we know we have
love my husband. He's the best. And you have to pray. Women out there, if you want to get the guy to do something for you, you gotta praise them when they do it. You gotta go, oh, honey, you make the best cappuccino.
Right. Good boy. Good boy. And we know we're starting. We have probably about like 15 minutes or so left. And we saw online that you've appeared in over 100 commercials. Is that?
Yes. It's because back in those days, you really made a lot of money doing commercials. And it's not so much that way today. I don't think everything's changed. But back then, it was very lucrative. it was also a prelude into acting, into doing television and film, which I did more film than television. But I started off from modeling and doing commercials, especially the Hispanic version of Miller Beer and Coors Light and Bud Light, and it was just all these beer commercials back then. I don't know if they still have them. Oh, maybe. Yeah, maybe they do.
What would you say was your favorite? Like, were there any commercials that were your favorite that you did and you're like, oh man, that's cool? Because we know there's those crazy Super Bowl commercials they have every year, and it's like people shooting those. That has to be amazing. And
I did so many of them. One that sticks out that was fun was actually shot with the little guy on Fantasy Island.
Okay.
Used to say the plane.
Yeah.
And we
the
did
guy that Matt's gonna become when he gets older.
Yeah, right. He's aspiring to be like that. Okay. There was a Dunkin' Donuts where the guy would go, time to make the donuts. Yeah. And a bunch of us walked in, and it was me with Hervé was his name. And we were in the Dunkin' Donut commercial, and it was shot in Arizona. I think it was Flagstaff. Really beautiful. No, that was Taco Bell. I can't remember. I did so many. I did a lot of commercials. I really don't. I remember there was one that I did with it was a Kirin beer commercial, and it was the quickest commercial I ever shot, and it was with Gene Hackman.
Oh, yes.
So I got to work with Gene Hackman, and I only worked for 30 minutes in this commercial. It was for Japan. It was Kirin beer, and I was like this James Bond looking girl stalking him in the desert. And he was, but that's all I had to do was be in this car like I was stalking him. And that was it. I worked 30 minutes, and it was
just like drink Kirin beer, and you're just kind of like,
and I never saw the commercial, so it's like one time I was a mummy for something, and they dressed, I mean, I don't even know why they picked me. They could have picked anybody, because I was basically in this mummy costume, and it was for Canada. I think that was a beer commercial too.
Okay.
A lot of beer commercials.
Yeah. Beer commercials are weird. Like I brought up before that one of my favorite Super Bowl commercials, one that Bud Light did. And there was these guys that they were watching the game, and their girlfriends came by, and they're like, oh man, they're going to see all the beer. So they pressed the button, and the refrigerator turned around, and it was a blank wall. And when it did, the people that lived in the apartment next to them, they're like, guys, the magic refrigerator's back. And they opened it up and started taking all the beer out of the refrigerator. And I was like, that's great. Who thinks of this? Like,
wish I had a freaking refrigerator.
So guys still like beer commercials.
Oh yeah. Budweiser always does one. They do something with the Clydesdale almost every single Super Bowl.
Used
they
to
do
be
a
the
commercial.
frogs. You remember the frogs?
The frogs and the what's up. They do the what's up ones too.
I remember doing I think it was Miller Beer, and it was like a bus, and it turned into a plane, and we were on the bus, and it was really hot, and you opened the beer, and then the bus. I don't know. And it ran during Super Bowl. I made a lot of money. That was the only thing I cared about. This commercial, making a lot of money.
And I also saw online too, and I saved this for last. And if you don't want to talk about it, that's cool. But we saw that you also dated Prince and Sylvester Stallone.
All of that stuff, which is really too long to get into, is in my book, which was inspired by my relationship with Prince. And it's called The Day It Snowed in April.
Okay.
And that is my memoir. So everything you ever wanted to know about me is in that book.
That sounds like Maryland, because it snows in April. Like Maryland, you can wake up and it's 75 degrees one day. You go outside the next day and it's snowing.
Yeah, dude.
And
It
then
snowed
it's 70,
yesterday. I was like, what the
Are you guys, is that where you guys are in
Yeah, we're in
Maryland?
Maryland weather is infamous for up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. Yeah.
Well, I'm in sunny California. It's a little cloudy today, but really, I can't even imagine it being you guys having snow right now. We're almost in May.
Yeah, it was freezing yesterday, and then it was like
we
what,
had
70 degrees again.
Yeah, we had
today?
like a frost advisory, and
yeah.
like this week, I think it's supposed to get almost to the 70s. It's like,
yeah, and we're
I don't
just
know.
kind of like, what
doesn't
is
make up
this?
its mind.
Baseball has started. Stop it! Like, what is all this? And the reason why I asked that is because I saw it online, and I wasn't even going to ask, but I saw Sylvester Stallone, and the only thing, and he knows I'm getting ready to ask because I was talking about this before we went. Like, the only thing that popped through my mind is I was like, I cannot imagine what it would be like of Sylvester Stallone
like
dirty talking, and that's the thing. Like, just by the way, his voice isn't I'm like when he gets done, is he like, yo, Adrian?
Actually, if you want to see something funny, I did a movie that Corey Feldman directed called Busted. It was very campy comedy. And this other playmate, Ava Fabian, and I are in the movie, and we play cops. And there's this funny mock boxing match that we have. And she beats me up where they have to cut my eye, like in Rocky, and the blood's coming down and stuff. And at the end, I win. And I'm like, Marty! We're fighting over this nerdy guy in the movie. And instead of Adrian, I'm like, yo, Marty! I was imitating Sly, but honestly, I never heard Sly really talk dirty or in a risque way.
Yeah. I'm sorry. My mind's just,
you're a dark person.
And also, you did the movie Society also, and
now that was a dark, very strange movie.
Well, we talked about it before because Nick Benson, who we've had on the show before,
yes,
he did all the special effects for Society. So I saw that on there. I'm like, oh man, I was like, I got to talk about Society. Not only, Nick Benson, he's a good friend of the show.
Yeah, we've had him on the show.
Yeah, and I mean that movie is just a whole different prerogative, whole different side of some of the movies.
Actually, wouldn't you say that movie is kind of pertains to what's really going on in the world today? Yeah. I mean, it's kind of creepy. It's in a I don't know, in a incestuous, sadistic.
Yeah, kind of like in a Simpsons type way. Like, how is the Simpsons predicting all the stuff that's happening now? And it's like you watch that and you're just kind of like, wait a minute, this kind of seems a little familiar. Like, what is all this?
And Society, Society, Can't Buy Me Love, Married with Children, Playboy, Star Search, all the things that I've done, I didn't realize at the time that I was doing them were kind of milestones in my life. And looking back, they're all cult classics. They kind of help make that era what it was, which was the mid to late 80s. And looking back, it was sort of the grandfather of it all.
Yeah.
Right.
And of course, now, like, people, and we talked about this a little bit beforehand too, is that now conventions, movies like Society and all, like, if someone were like, hey, would you want to do a convention? And you go, yeah, I'll do a convention. People will come from far and near.
Well, I actually had that experience when I used to do the glamour cons for Playboy. I always had someone that was a fan of that movie Society that would bring in a DVD or something from that movie for me to sign. And it was dubbed in many languages. It's been seen all over the world. And actually, it's a cult classic too. I just got an invite from Nick Benson they're doing Society reunions.
Nice.
And he was asking me about one that they're planning for October, but my plate is kind of busy because I'm shooting a Western this summer with my husband in Texas, and we're in Italy promoting a movie we shot last year in Italy in September and October. So I'm not sure of my schedule with the way things are opening up or not opening up, because things are still kind of strange right now. So it's hard to plan anything.
Yeah.
And of course, is there anything coming up for you aside from the movies? And of course, where can everybody find you?
Oh, you can find me across the board everywhere as Devin DeVasquez. So Facebook, Instagram, Telegram. You can find me on Gab. You can find me on MeWe. You can find me. It's just Devin DeVasquez across the board.
Be a carrier pigeon. Just write Devin DeVasquez. There you go, pigeon. Here we go.
You want to find me? I'm there. I've been out there. I think I was one of the first Playmates to have a website back in the late 90s.
Oh wow.
So I've been on
that dialogue.
Even though I'm old enough to be your mother, I'm watching you guys.
I was just telling Ray, I was like, I don't think we should drink that much because kind of self-conscious how much I'm drinking.
And of course, we'll be back next week. Our guest star is adult film star Tindra Frost. She'll be joining us the week after that. We will be joined by I'm drawing a blank on of course we're live. I'll edit that out. But anyways, well, Devin, we appreciate you being on the Happy Hour podcast. For those
you guys were fun.
We will see you guys next week. And Devin, can you hang out for a minute once we're
Sure.
Awesome. For those of you watching at home, thank you for joining us. We will be live next week on Facebook Live with Tindra Frost. And oh yeah, now I remember, it's going to be Leslie Margarita, Broadway star, who will be joining us the week after Tindra Frost. Cool. So we will see you guys next week. Thank you for joining us.